Have you ever felt like the smarter you are, the lonelier you become? Sometimes the more you understand, the less people want to hear you out. This feeling isn't just in your head, it's real and it's been happening throughout history. Society has long been suspicious of those who think differently. Not because they're wrong, but because they see truths most others refuse to face. From Socrates, who was sentenced to death for questioning the status quo, to Galileo, who was silenced for challenging the universe's order, history is filled with stories of brilliant minds being shunned. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of philosophy's most blunt and honest voices, called intelligence a kind of curse, something that can separate you from the world instead of connecting you to it. But why? Why do people push away those who see the world more clearly? The answer lies deep in human nature and psychology. Think about it when you meet someone physically stronger. Do you feel threatened? Usually not. You might admire their strength or even look up to them. When you meet someone wealthy, sure, there might be a twinge of jealousy, but you don't feel attacked personally. But when you come across someone who is intellectually superior, something different happens. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just bring new ideas to the table. They hold up a mirror that reflects the limits in how others think. And that reflection, it can make people uncomfortable, even defensive. Just by existing, intelligent thinkers can unintentionally make others feel inadequate, even if they don't say a word. So why does intelligence cause such a strong reaction? Why does it push people away more than strength or wealth? To understand this, let's explore how our brains react to different kinds of superiority: physical strength, wealth, or beauty. These are all external traits. We can recognize them without questioning who we really are. But intelligence? That hits closer to home. It's tied directly to how we see ourselves, our beliefs, our worldview, our very identity. When someone challenges your way of thinking, it can feel like they're challenging you personally. Instead of admiration, many people instinctively resist deep intelligence, not because it's arrogant or condescending, but because it forces them to face their own blind spots. This is why throughout history, deep thinkers have often been pushed to the edges of society. Their ideas don't just challenge facts, they threaten egos. And humans by nature will do almost anything to protect their ego from feeling vulnerable. Think about your own experience for a moment. Have you ever tried to bring up a complex or thought-provoking idea in a casual conversation only to be met with silence or awkwardness? Have you noticed how people quickly change the subject when things get too deep? This isn't random, it's a defense mechanism. When faced with someone who thinks deeply, many minds shift into survival mode. Instead of curiosity, there's resistance. Instead of engagement, dismissal. That's why intellectuals, visionaries, and philosophers often feel isolated, not because they want to be alone, but because society quietly pushes them away. Here's an interesting twist. Studies show that in social groups, confidence often wins over intelligence. People naturally gravitate toward those who speak with certainty, even if their ideas are simplistic or shallow. That's why charismatic speakers, motivational gurus, and viral influencers often dominate the conversation by telling people what they want to hear, not by challenging them to think deeper. And meanwhile, those who question popular beliefs or dive into nuance struggle to find a broad audience. This is the paradox of intelligence. The more you chase truth, the more you can feel disconnected from the crowd. The mirror effect doesn't just reveal society's limits, it shows why society fears change in the first place. But is this fear just anecdotal, or does science back it up? Modern neuroscience confirms it. Research shows that when people feel intellectually outmatched, their brain's amygdala, the part that detects threats and fear, lights up. Put simply, deep thinking triggers a primal fight or flight response, almost like facing a physical threat. But why would intelligence feel as dangerous as a lion on the savannah? The answer lies in our evolution. For tens of thousands of years, survival wasn't about who was the smartest, but about who belonged to the tribe. Our ancestors depended on social acceptance because being cast out meant vulnerability, and often death. That's why our brains are wired to prioritize belonging over intellectual challenge. When someone highly intelligent enters a group, they upset the fragile social balance. Their presence questions accepted ideas, traditions, and unwritten rules. To the brain, this can feel like facing an enemy, not just someone who thinks differently. So many deep thinkers feel isolated not because they lack social skills, but because their intelligence makes them stand out in a world that rewards fitting in. A 2021 study from Stanford University found something even more surprising. Okay, when people interact one-on-one with a deep thinker, they feel less threatened. But in groups, that threat response spikes. Why? Because social status matters most in groups. People don't just react to intelligence. They react to how others see them compared to that intelligence. If someone feels overshadowed by a smart person, they're more likely to try to put them down or exclude them all to protect their social standing. This is why deep thinkers often find real, honest conversations in private, but struggle to connect in larger social settings. Psychologists also point to a few mental biases that explain why intelligence faces resistance. The Dunning-Kruger effect, where people with less knowledge overestimate their own smarts, while highly intelligent people often doubt themselves. This mismatch causes tension and misunderstanding. Then there's status quo bias. Our brains prefer the familiar over new complex ideas. Intelligence often shakes up that comfort zone. And the backfire effect, when confronted with facts that challenge beliefs, people sometimes double down instead of changing their minds. So when deep thinkers bring up challenging truths, many push back hard. Social media has only amplified this. Algorithms favor quick, emotional content that grabs attention, not slow, thoughtful discussion. Look at the most viral videos and posts. They're usually simple, catchy, and often misleading. The deeper you get into complex ideas, the harder it is to package them into shareable sound bites. This means society increasingly values entertainment over enlightenment, making it even harder for thoughtful voices to be heard. So what does all this mean for those who think deeply? The rejection they face isn't just social, it's biological, psychological, and cultural. It's baked into human nature, reinforced by group dynamics and magnified by technology. That doesn't mean deep thinkers should stop sharing their insights, but they do need to understand the invisible forces working against them. And if society resists intelligence so much, what does it actually embrace? The answer is simple: comfort. A world where predictable stories, easy answers, and familiar beliefs reign supreme. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't see intelligence as a blessing, he saw it as a burden. He believed the smarter you are, the harder it is to connect with the rest of the world. Because most people live driven by what he called the will, a blind craving for pleasure, comfort, and survival. But highly intelligent people develop a different drive, a will to truth. They crave understanding, even if it means facing painful realities. While most avoid discomfort, deep thinkers seek it out, knowing that truth rarely comes easy. This creates a deep divide between intellectuals and the majority, where simple pleasures and routine mean meaning for most. Deep thinkers often feel alienated, chasing questions others avoid. Schopenhauer argued that the more you understand human nature, the more isolated you become. Because you see through the lies, the small talk, and the facades that keep society comfortable. And when you value truth over politeness, participating in shallow social games becomes a struggle. You want depth, but society favors surface. Deep thinkers don't just crave small talk, they hunger for meaningful conversations. This craving makes everyday chit-chat feel shallow, even boring. They see through the noise and recognize how often human desires miss the mark. Schopenhauer saw desire and ambition as illusions, distractions most chase endlessly: money, power, relationships. Deep thinkers question the very point of these pursuits. This often makes them seem distant or even indifferent to what lights up most people's lives. No wonder intelligent people often feel misunderstood, alienated, or even resented. Their mere presence forces others to confront uncomfortable truths they'd rather avoid. Schopenhauer compared intelligence to a heightened awareness, a blessing that feels more like a curse. He wrote, "A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial." His reasoning: the more you see the world's flaws, the harder it is to find happiness in it. The deeper your thoughts, the lonelier you become. For Schopenhauer, happiness and intelligence were inversely connected. He believed ignorance, not wisdom, was the true key to happiness. This explains why brilliant minds like Pascal or Kafka often wrestled with depression, existential dread, and social isolation. But Schopenhauer didn't just point out the problem, he also offered solutions. He suggested that while intelligence leads to loneliness, there are ways for deep thinkers to cope with isolation. First, embrace solitude. Schopenhauer saw solitude not as punishment, but as a privilege, a space for intellectual and creative growth. He urged deep thinkers to spend time alone cultivating ideas, instead of constantly seeking approval from society. Second, find your tribe. He advised seeking out like-minded souls through books, philosophy, or exclusive intellectual circles, rather than forcing yourself to fit in mainstream society. Third, engage with the world wisely. Schopenhauer warned against indiscriminately sharing profound insights with those unprepared to understand them. Instead, observe society, learn its patterns, and choose your moments and words carefully. His teachings remain a powerful guide for modern thinkers wrestling with social rejection. Now, yes, intelligence can cause loneliness, but it also grants freedom, wisdom, and a richer understanding of life. It's a double-edged sword, a source of both power and pain. It allows you to see reality clearly, but distances you from those clinging to comforting illusions. In the end, Schopenhauer's philosophy confirms what many already sense. Society doesn't fear intelligence itself. It fears what intelligence exposes. Deep thinkers aren't rejected because they're wrong. They're rejected because they're right, too early. So if you've ever felt isolated by your own mind, know this: you're not broken. You're simply seeing the world for what it truly is. But does this mean deep thinkers are doomed to isolation forever? Are there ways to navigate society without losing intellectual depth? The truth is, society isn't built to embrace deep thinkers. It's built to maintain stability. Most people choose comfort over uncomfortable truths. That's why shallow conversations, simple ideas, and repetitive content dominate social spaces. But why is comfort prioritized over intellectual growth? Why does society resist change, even when it promises progress? The answer lies in our psychology and the institutions shaping us from early childhood. At its core, the human brain craves certainty and predictability. Evolution programmed us to avoid mental discomfort, a phenomenon called cognitive ease. The brain prefers simple, familiar ideas because they require less energy to process. Complex, nuanced, or unfamiliar ideas feel difficult, even dangerous. System justification theory explains why people defend the status quo, even when it works against them. Rather than question authority or outdated beliefs, most rationalize them because change feels uncertain and risky. Groupthink plays a role too. People conform to widely accepted beliefs to avoid social rejection. This is why society often rejects intellectual dissent, even when it's rooted in truth. This deep-rooted preference for comfort over complexity explains why intellectuals, philosophers, and scientists often struggle to gain mass acceptance, especially during their lifetimes. Look at today's digital world. Who dominates social media? Not the intellectuals, but those who turn complex ideas into viral, feel-good sound bites. Thought-provoking discussions struggle to get traction because depth takes time. Until viral content is instant, emotional, and easy to digest. Algorithms reward engagement, and nothing grabs attention like controversy, outrage, or humor. This often sidelines rational, intellectual discourse. Echo chambers develop, where people only hear what reinforces their beliefs, making them resistant to new perspectives. In this environment, deep thinkers challenging mainstream narratives are often ignored, misunderstood, or even attacked. But rejection of deep thinking isn't only online. It starts in institutions shaping our minds. Schools and workplaces, for example. Schools claim to value intelligence, but often reward obedience over independent thought. Students who memorize and repeat information succeed. Those who challenge authority are labeled troublemakers. In the workplace, it's similar. Companies don't always favor the most intelligent or innovative employees. They favor those who fit the culture and maintain the existing power structures. In politics, bold, logical leaders often lose to those who tell people what they want to hear. This is why many celebrated intellectuals were outcasts in their time, their ideas seen as disruptive rather than valuable. Society claims to value intelligence, innovation, and critical thinking, but only celebrates them once they're safe and widely accepted. Take Galileo, imprisoned for his discoveries, but now hailed as a scientific genius. Van Gogh died in poverty, but his paintings now sell for millions. Nikola Tesla revolutionized energy, but died obscure and broke. Society doesn't embrace intelligence when it challenges norms, only in hindsight, when it no longer threatens. So if deep thinkers struggle to be accepted, what can they do? If you've ever felt misunderstood for your depth of thought, you're in good company. Throughout history, brilliant minds were ridiculed, persecuted, or ignored during their lifetimes. Their ideas were seen as dangerous, disruptive, or simply too difficult to accept. They shared one thing in common: they were ahead of their time and paid the price for it. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, spent his life questioning accepted beliefs. Instead of praise, he faced trial for corrupting the youth and disrespecting gods. Given a chance to escape, he chose death by poison rather than betray his principles. His last words: "The unexamined life is not worth living." His death sent a clear message. Society fears those who challenge its core beliefs. Galileo shattered centuries of religious dogma by proving the earth orbits the sun. The church, controlling knowledge, branded him a heretic and forced him to publicly recant. He spent his life under house arrest, his work banned for nearly 100 years. Galileo's story shows even undeniable truths get rejected if they threaten power. Friedrich Nietzsche argued traditional morality was flawed society built on comforting lies. He believed true strength came from creating one's own values. Dismissed as insane then, his ideas now influence philosophy, psychology, and literature. Tesla dreamed of free, wireless energy to revolutionize civilization. But industrialists like Edison and Morgan saw his ideas as threats to their profits and shut him down. Tesla died alone, broke, and forgotten while others profited from his stolen ideas. His life perfectly illustrates how society rewards businessmen and marketers over true innovators. Consider Alan Turing. His groundbreaking cryptography work helped end World War II, saving millions of lives. His theories laid the foundation of modern artificial intelligence. Yet instead of honor, he faced persecution for his personal life. In 1952, he was chemically castrated for being gay, a decision that led to his tragic suicide at just 41 years old. Today, Turing is hailed as a hero, but in his time, society discarded him despite his incredible contributions. While most historical deep thinkers were men, Hypatia of Alexandria was a rare exception. A philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer, she challenged the male-dominated intellectual world of ancient Rome. She taught scientific reasoning and rational thought, which put her at odds with religious authorities. In 415 AD, a mob of religious extremists brutally murdered her, viewing her as a threat to their power. Her story highlights a crucial pattern throughout history. Intellectual progress is often met with violent resistance. All these thinkers shared the same fate. They introduced ideas too advanced for their time. They were rejected, ridiculed, or punished while alive. But their ideas later became the foundation of human progress. Society doesn't fear intelligence itself. It fears what intelligence represents: change. That raises an important question. If history proves society resists deep thinkers, what can you do if you're one? Are deep thinkers doomed to loneliness? Absolutely not. It just means you need to understand how to navigate society wisely. Not every person or place is ready for deep conversations. Save your most profound thoughts for those who truly appreciate them. You don't need millions to understand you. You just need the right ones. Seek out those who think like you, whether in books, online communities, or intellectual circles. The greatest thinkers in history found ways to make complex ideas accessible. Einstein said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Learn to communicate your depth without overwhelming others." Schopenhauer said, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." Deep thinkers see the world differently, and that will always make some uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean you should stop thinking deeply. Society needs deep thinkers. It just doesn't always know how to embrace them. So if you've ever felt like an outsider because of your thoughts, remember, you're not alone. While society may fear deep thinkers, it's deep thinkers who push humanity forward. If this video resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced rejection for thinking deeply? Let's start a conversation. And if you want to explore more insights from history's greatest minds, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.